Mark Drasutis.
Hello, Chris.
Hello, mate.
Morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks for joining me and all the palaver for the 20 minutes before setting up the microphones and whatnot.
It's a pleasure. I try to simplify things, and podcast desks are not the simplest things in the world, so it's not no discredit to you.
Thanks, mate. Well, this is our second round of this, and I was admitting to you before I bought a Rodecaster at home. You've come in a second time because we're going to have take two of our time together.
Totally.
And then you just threw me a curveball, which is why I turned on the microphone straight away, and it's like, oh, introduce me. And so I don't know how I would introduce you, but I'll tell you what I think of when I think of you.
Okay.
And then maybe that's the introduction, and you can talk a bit about your own career and what's not. But
do that.
when I think that I'm going to solve a problem around digital delivery, I need to kick around a business idea. I need like an objective opinion when it comes to stuff, digital and people, maybe. I don't know, bits and pieces.
Yep.
I think of you.
That's nice.
I mean it. Like I mean a lot of people. I
you.
do generally go, right, I'm going to ask Mark, see what he thinks of that.
Okay.
The fact that we don't get to talk often enough means that consider me buried in hell most of the time. But I always like to start off with this, with what do you care about at the moment? But because of your curveball, I'm going to come back to you.
Okay.
Like when you think of the steel thread through your career, then
Okay.
and I'll start there instead.
Yep.
Like what is it? Like what's the thing that goes through everything that you've done?
It's a very good question. And I've kind of been in the world of digital for 25 years plus now. So. And I've been talking to various other people from my past gigs. I bumped into someone in Melbourne who used to work with me at Sportal back in the day in 2000. And I think steel thread would be focus on customers, understand the triptych of technology, product, design, and then strategic outcomes, how you then distill those into execution, build teams to deliver those. So I've kind of been, my career's over, I talk about it in chapters. It's a bit of a book. You kind of make your own book in your career. And I've had kind of like, I'm on my fourth chapter now. I've had 3 chapters. So I started out in media in the UK, working ironically with Internet Magazine. So there was a magazine about the internet and with a lot of AOL discs on the front of it. With Roger and Carol at the Internet Magazine back in EMAP. And it was a media business, but it was a media business that was, the internet had just started. I've bought myself a T-shirt that I'm older than the internet. And the internet was a thing. It was like an inflection point. Like, what does this mean for the world? What does this mean for our industry? What does this mean for the people around us? What does it mean for consumers? What does it mean for like the economy of the world? And but for media, it was instantly, this is going to cause disruption in this space entirely, because the ability to get content, to actually purchase subscriptions, to actually drive a different outcome and basically interactions around things you couldn't do on paper, things that you could do interactively. So my first chapter was media. It was basically working in the EMAP media, then working The Economist. So building a lot of The Economist with Dave and a lot of the team there at The Economist around how we move that to subscription. And also educating others. And one of the common threads is, as I've talked about, building teams and teaching people about what this impacts can have on them in common language and analogies that they can associate with their lives. Working with the journalists at The Economist, because the internet was like, I don't want my things on the internet, please, thank you very much, I'm The Economist. And a lot of the change there was around change of mindset, building technologies that meant that they could actually feel like they were doing the same thing they were doing before, but with a different outcome, which was actually providing it via subscription service in a browser. Then my second chapter was digital natives. So I moved on to being Sportal and talked about that. And Liz Kim, I met her down in Melbourne, as I said last week, and 20 years ago. The team there did a lot of great work and a lot of the foundational work. A lot of great people have gone on to the world of European sport from the Sportal background, which was building a lot of database-driven experiences for sport, mapping out leagues and all that kind of great stuff.
Right.
And that was simplifying experiences around sport. And then moved to AOL, and ironically, that's where I carved a lot of my product background, a lot of my understanding of how data, technology, and product how need to work together to build a simplified experience for customers. And AOL across Europe wasn't on the internet at the time. It was using Rain Man and FDO forms for those out there that know AOL. They had the whole the AOL client, and we moved them into a browser, TCP/IP, HTTP, HTML world, and that was where I first bumped into analytics, put in Omniture to actually allow us to see what was happening across all those experiences. You could never really at the time see what was going on with your experiences on a real-time basis. Then I moved to Yahoo, carved a lot of my career path there in relation to Yahoo Music, Yahoo Media, across all the products teams in EMEA, 19 markets, 20-ish languages, 290 million customers across EMEA. And then moved to Australia, and then chapter 3, transformations, taking that digital native thinking into traditional organizations and helping them to understand the role of digital, how to apply a leadership philosophy and a mindset around digital. Because digital, we talk about it a lot, digital world, digital, everyone mentions the word. Everyone who's worked for me knows digital's a thing, it's a mindset. It's not a thing, it's a mindset. There isn't like a physical, that's digital. It doesn't exist. So you need to think about things in a different way, approach problems in a different way, approach customer experiences in a different way, approach your business model, your operating model in a different way. So worked in News Corp Australia. I think that's where I met you, Chris, and various times across Australia. News Corp Australia, built that team there for the digital side of that business. Then IEG, took that on a bit of a transformation journey with Brent and the team, and Chris and the team, and Ian and the team, and Cal and Julie, etc. And then ASX. And now I'm on chapter 4, which is all of those lessons distilled down into helping businesses to understand how to build product teams, understand to build a treasure map of their business via Amplitude. And I'm head of value there across APJ, strategically looking at how to make things easy, how to make things connected, how to make things fast for teams and businesses to understand the experiences of their customers. So the steel thread, to answer your question, long-winded way of doing it, is effectively how do you build simplified experiences, build teams to deliver those, and then understand the impacts of kind of inflection points on your business model and your operating model. And that's kind of what's on top of my mind right now, these inflection points, a little bit. What's on your mind?
Thank you for asking.
Always like to know what's going on in your mind, Chris. So what's going on in your mind?
It might feel or sound like a fantasy. Not that this is not that sort of podcast. People don't get worried.
No.
How I changed the face of digital consulting forever in Australia.
Cool.
How to be the most recognized brand in building digital assets and making them secure. If that's the aspiration, which it is.
Yes.
Everything that underpins that, the people, the funding, the roles, the method that we would use, intensely being out of my depth all the time. I posted about this on LinkedIn this morning about being surrounded by people like you actually that donate me time, and I learn so much. And it's how do I synthesize that into not what they do, but something that's a narrative around the things that I see people like you do.
Vitally important.
Right? And it's really on my mind. And, and I was reflecting this morning just on, it's like treading, it's not a bad thing. It's like treading water relentlessly, but having your mouth just above the surface of the water and having lots of things happening underneath that I can't see.
Yeah.
And this isn't meant as motherhood. I feel really blessed that a lot of stuff that I wouldn't have known is being exposed to me on a level that I didn't even know existed.
Yep.
And it surprises me and terrifies me all at the same time, because actually all I want to do is provide for my family, and then next provide for the families of the people in the company that I'm responsible for, and that terrifies me just as much. I don't want to see anyone not provided for. And I really feel that pressure, the burden.
That pressure and that burden, though, is that's the tension. So I think it's just to follow on from your point, it's like it's triggered some thoughts in my mind on you kind of need to tread that path in leadership, which is where you are. I've been leaders of big teams. You tread the path of leadership in relation to like you need to be embracing uncertainty and comfortable with it, but also able to know that you don't know everything. You know, I have a couple of mentors in my career, and one of the things that resonates with me is it's okay to say I don't know, as long as you have enough self-awareness to surround you with people who are able to be smarter, brighter than you, who do know, and then listen, active listening to them, and then give them the ability to carve the space and carve the mindset and carve the kind of like the context that allows them to deliver on what they want to do and how they want to do it. So I think you're 100% right. It's okay to have that pressure and that balancing point, that tension point. And lots of people kind of think they know, but that's a bold ambition to fundamentally change how digital consulting operates in Australia. And I think it's needed, but it's also something that everything is a work in progress. There is no finish line. Like you don't have a finishing line. There isn't such a thing as a finish line. It's like you run in athletics. Like I'm a Liverpool fan, so Liverpool play football. The referee blows the whistle at the end. That's the end of the game. Like they walk off the pitch. Now that's that's the start of something else. It's not the end of the match for Liverpool. It's actually the start of something else, which is like, you know, warm down, tactics, training. What do we do where? So what do we learn from the experience we had in that match and then move on to the next match and then start again? It's all a work in progress. There's no finish line. And I think that's the tension that you're trying to get to there. It just it's hard. It takes a toll. And in my career, I've done a lot of operational work, which is in that tension point. Like one of the people asked me what's a defining moment in my career a couple of times, and one of them was the London bombings in 7/7 at AOL. Like some of the team was impacted by it. We had to basically instantly change everything on our product roadmap, instantly change everything in relation to like the focus on the technology team, instantly change how we were approaching building experiences for the population of London, the population of the UK, and the population of the world to understand what was going on. Like we had to build a video platform or scale our video platform. We had a video platform, but it wasn't to the level it was by the end of the day. It was literally, we scaled it during the day to provide video through a new medium, aka the internet, via a browser to allow people on their phones and allow people on their computers anywhere in the world to see what was going on from the BBC, the ITV, et cetera, via our world network. We didn't build it for that. We built it for events, and we built it but we ended up having to change. And it taught me a lot about how you need to you can't know everything about that. Your team, though, has this specialism and expertise, and you need to give them the space to bring that to the fore, and they will. If you put them on the right path with the right goals. You know, it's not like increasing streams. It's not like increasing revenue. It's actually just, are we able to decrease the time of people to get to the knowledge they need about that event? That may be the outcome. Let's focus on that. And if we focus on that, then the other things will come from it. So I think it's, your pressure and your tension is sometimes a good thing to have that tension.
I have a very specific question for you on that experience and operationalizing things, living in the tension, creating it. I was talking to a friend of mine who leads a company yesterday. Been around for 12 years, so they're doing something right. And I've known him for a long time, so I'm very proud of his work, right? And we'll kick around ideas. Good. He said to me yesterday, I feel like my business, all of it, is a training ground for people. And I have to accept that they don't accept that this business is it's an ecosystem, and success is the ecosystem, not necessarily the individuals.
That's right.
So, my question is, how do you, perpetuate the feeling of an all-star team, not all-star individuals, and stop people exiting when they think, oh yeah, I've got this, I'm the expert. And I don't mean that people shouldn't move on at the right time. Of course they do.
Totally.
But you know, and this isn't a complaint. It's something I've accepted, and it's a second phase of the question. My superpower happens to be bringing people together. It happens to be communicating. I really embrace that role.
Yep.
It's often something that's undervalued, and you know, luckily for me, I attach sales numbers to that, so people value when the sales number's there, but they don't necessarily value how I get to the sales number.
No.
So what observations do you have around that? And is it just a matter of, like, and I'm not feeding the answer, but is it like just accepting in its human nature? Or is there an answer you've seen where people have done that really well?
It's a good question. I think there's probably, everything seems to have three elements kind of come to mind. So you're 100% right. Everything's an ecosystem. Like everything's actually a system. So you need to, I think my experience has been that you build these teams of individuals and you build these teams of technologies and data and decisions made off that data, and then people who then either make those decisions or act and change things off those decisions. And the diversity of thought and the diversity of context and background is vitally important. So, you know, I was talking there about 25 years ago, all over the last 20 years, and no one knew what was going to happen with the internet. There's no magic, like I know and everyone else doesn't. But pulling together people from different backgrounds, and we did this at News Corp, like editorial expertise, sales expertise, marketing expertise, technology expertise, then external expertise, and people who may be trained at university as a scientist, and people who trained to be, who at the weekend did serve lifesavers, so had a different context again, coming together around the kind of build that diversity and that diversity of thought into how you build your teams. Having a lot of people who come from the same background, who have the same experience, is going to just get you a bad outcome, traditionally. Like, it's going to get you a bunch of people who are, you know, they're resistant to other people coming in from different backgrounds. Like, I've struggled a lot with this because I come from, you know, I don't know the sectors that some of the industries I've been in to the nth level, but there's a lot of people there that do. So you have to listen to them, embrace them, and pull them into the team and build that diversity. And so the first element is, I think, opening your mind to that diversity of thought and building a system and culture and a team construct and operating model that embraces that. Then it comes to alignment. And that's one of the pieces around, that's the critical element, is alignment. If things aren't aligned all the way through the organization, they're all facing the same direction, they're all seeing the same picture, they're all working towards the same outcome. And you mentioned value a lot there, and that's kind of my current role, is focused on value, which, what do we mean by that? Well, we mean it's not you that drives the value, it's them that sees the value, and they define what value is. So I think customers define value. Like, we at Amplitude don't define value, we define value that's basically what the customers value. If the customers value it, then, you know, you're hitting the right spot. If the customers don't value it, then, you know, you need to understand better what they value. I think the element of alignment is, I see a lot of places where teams are misaligned, and that misalignment, like, someone told me, what was a great phrase, which was like 5 millimeters at the top ends up 500 meters down in your teams.
Yeah.
So if you have 5 millimeters misalignment at the top of your organization, or the top of your team, or your product manager is misaligned to your technology manager, is misaligned to your data analyst, is misaligned to your business leader, then the alignment will amplify and expand as it gets into the teams. So the alignment is the second element. And the third element is exactly to your point, realizing that the world we're in today is very transitional and the transitions are getting shorter. People used to work 20 years in an organization. My dad worked for his whole life for the British Army. Didn't work anywhere else, worked for the British Army. And you have people that have roles for 15, 20 years in organizations. You must know people who've I've worked at this place for 20 years and that's great. Now, the frog in the pan scenario, they don't know they only know what they know because they only know what they know in front of them. Mm. They don't know half the things that other people bring to the team, but they only know what they know. So you have to basically talk to them in a way that values what they know, but also opens their mind to other thinking and other inputs. But transitional jobs are the thing. That's just how generational changes happen. So the third element is that the team's not going to be there. Your team is not going to be there for the whole of the time. They're going to be there for maybe 2-3 years. They're going to be there for 5 years maybe. I remember standing up in front of the team at IAG when I joined as the Chief Digital Officer and said, we have a 5-year journey here to move this business from A to B. I won't go through the numbers because it's probably available information. But from A to B. And what I actually care about is that you put on your LinkedIn profile at the end of that you drove part of that because you're going to go get another job. And your other job is going to be somewhere different to here with different context. But that's okay because that's the world we're in today. People transition into different jobs, different roles, take their skills, take their capabilities. They all have you're writing a career book with multiple chapters. If a whole book was one chapter, it's kind of a boring book. Mm. So I think that's it's got characters to run through it, but I think it's I think the three elements are you need to have diversity of thought and understand and embrace the system. You need to have alignment across your teams and across the outcomes that you're trying to drive. And if you don't have that alignment, then focus 100% on getting that alignment. And then realize it's transitional. And then just embrace that. Because someone else will come in with a different mindset, different thought, and it's all valuable. That's how I see it.
I like the power of threes. It's an interesting thing that gets deep, isn't it? And by the way, you stole my role there. I normally summarise what you've said.
That's all right. I'll do that. That's fine. Well, because it's got to be clarity. It's about clarity.
I actually think that's one of the things I get from this time with you and others. It's my own clarity of thought, and it's part of that content experience, not just writing and drawing as you see me do, but also
I like your drawings you have.
Actually, you've just inspired another one. I really like the visual of it. I'll just show Mark what I've drawn.
It's good.
Yeah, that's as simple as that.
Oh yeah, 100%.
And I'll turn that into that's the 5mm an alignment at the top will be 500 meters by the time it gets to the team. And actually, I think there's a deep lesson in that for me as well. I think sometimes because if I am the leadership and my thoughts are disconnected and sometimes seemingly I can see a pattern but I haven't explained it, it's then fairly logical why the people behind me directly next level wouldn't get it.
Totally. There's a great example of one of my, I'll try and anonymize this. There's a great experience from one organization I work for where we were doing a lot of work with Atlassian. So we use Bamboo, we use Jira, we use Confluence. And we were investing more into Atlassian because effectively that was allowing us to do our CI/CD, and therefore we put any job, any task in Jira was able to then go into pipeline and then go into testing and then go out the door. And it allowed us to ship quicker. So effectively our cycle time was reduced, which is a good thing for your teams because you're able to reduce the cycle time and therefore you decrease defects and et cetera. So a business case was built for additional investment in Atlassian, and we're in Australia, just for context for everyone. And the business case was presented at the exec, seemed to be aligned, CIO, CTO's aligned, chief customer officer's aligned, everyone's aligned. And then business case approved. We'll go release OPEX to then go have that conversation and put some more effort into what we're doing with Atlassian. And the side conversation after the meeting was, Mark, and it was a C-suite with an F in the middle of it, came to me and said, what does Atlassian actually do for us? What do we get from Atlassian? I've heard about Atlassian, but what do they do? Again, an assumption that everyone knows everything. Everyone knows the same. Why would they know? They'd see it on the news. They'd see Mike and Scott. They'd see all this great business that's in Australia signing off a piece of software that releases and creates a lot of operational efficiencies in your business. Didn't even know what it did for us. What value did it drive? And it just stuck in my head because it's like someone hadn't done a very good job of understanding the value that it provided and positioning it that way. They talked about Atlassian a lot. No one knows what Atlassian does. Like, they didn't. Why would someone in the finance department know what Atlassian does? Unless someone had asked them what they did and how Atlassian could help them and how it could release more value for them. It's just interesting.
It is. Actually, kudos to that C with a F
Asking
in the middle.
the question.
No, I rate it. I actually rate it because, it actually relates.
He's gone on to greater things now, so he's a very good leader.
Well, he chose the right question.
Because he was able to say, I don't know. I don't know what Atlassian does, so tell me.
Yeah. I think that's probably a hallmark of the character as a leader. I think that's where I was getting to before. It's the acceptance that people move on, is something. But I'd like them to move on with a comprehension of ecosystems, but that's just me. But the second component is that you're just alluding on there with that person is, it's all well and good being a vulnerable, open leader that admits one's own failings in the hope of eliciting where other people see value in you. Back to your point, it's not what you say is value, it's what others see as value. The reality is I find of the ecosystem at the top, there's a lot of, let's call it bullshit going on with people obfuscating what they do and don't know, covering their arse. And I wonder as I get older if it's going to be worse for me and my friends and people I know, because, there's a reality to, how we might be seen in business and, wanting to, protect a patch or not be seen as vulnerable in some way. It's super challenging. I think what I will say at this moment is I feel very strongly about flying the flag to say I don't know that.
Yes.
Because why not?
Totally.
But I find that access into information and expectations that you might know are very high, and it really impresses me when I meet senior executives, and I don't mean impressed like I need to be impressed, but I love it when I see them go, what is that? And I was in with a board recently, and we had some of the guys in there, and the chairman. I was very impressed that he was just like, I don't know what that is.
Yep. Yeah, exactly.
And it just shifted everything. It was good, real good. And I think that we need more of that. It's a thing that I think that we're afraid of doing, and I just think we need more.
Totally. And it's the three traits three again. Lord. But
you and your threes.
Three traits of great leaders. There's more, I'm sure, but literally honesty, empathy, and the ability to basically take feedback and give feedback. Like if you got those three things kind of nailed, and I'd add kind of active listening is another. So and curiosity.
Sorry, what was that?
See what you did there. Active listening and curiosity are also traits that need to be. But if you got the first three, then those three come as like a proxy, because it's great team leaders. Like Hugh McDermott did a piece on LinkedIn. He's posting pieces around specific traits he's got as a leader, and one is empathy and one is feedback. And have a read. They're really great because he's gone through a load of teams over time about that. But your point on board and exec, again, the same thing. Like if you're not curious, you're not asking the right questions. But I think there's an interesting challenge coming our way, Chris, to your point of like people who kind of don't have the honesty and imitate they know. Yeah? And but the way that people are now using, or the ability to change a piece of data point into an insight that then validates a hypothesis, is like shortened. Like, you used to take ages. Like, if I had a platform like Amplitude when I was back in the day in Sportal and The Economist, we wouldn't have made half the decisions we made, because basically it was on gut, not on signal. And I think the interesting generational change is that you're able now very quickly to validate and understand and kind of provide the data and provide the insight behind why you're making a certain decision in a business. And if that's not there, then you should really ask the question, where is the data? We have a customer in Japan, which is a great example. It's in the kind of oddly in the health, it's in the, well, not oddly, it's in the home care kind of nursing home kind of, you know, care space, retirement home space. And they use our product at delivery team level, middle management exec level. Then every business case that goes up to the board or for the C-suite for investment has to have an Amplitude dashboard attached to it to validate why you should be doing the thing you're doing, because it's based on actual understanding of your customers and understanding the needs of those customers. And this is why we're going to be investing in this and not this, which gets at this point on, we were talking earlier on about bloat and like building pieces of product features that why you're building this thing if you haven't got the data and insights that says this is why you should do it. That's becoming generational. I think generational. The generation, like, I'm old, 50-ish plus, but there's a generation of 20, 30-year-olds who've just grown up with that. They've grown up in an app-only world. They've grown up with the ability to have data and insights at their fingertips. So they'll ask these questions, but they'll back it up with data. Lots of people for our generation plus, that's just not their operating mode. So back to your conversation with the board, like, just be honest. It's great that they're honest on the board and say, I don't know, tell me more about it. But at least it asks the questions, therefore go get the data, go get the insight, and tell me why we should do this thing. That's good.
I really mean this, and I don't understand enough. But at the level I do understand, when I look at Amplitude, and we would talk before we came on here about customers, and I'm like, I don't know why everyone doesn't use it, you know. And that sounds like I'm trying to get advertising revenue or something.
No,
but I really mean it. And
totally.
when I was just bring this back up here, I was doing some research with my good friend. Here we go. Look at this. Here's my research that I was doing last night. Why wouldn't I want to track user behavior, provide get actionable insights, get testing supported, customizable dashboard, facilitate team collaboration? Why wouldn't I want that? Why wouldn't I want to know that I'm not bloating the wrong areas and getting the maximum yield from the products that I'm building, and I'm making the right investments? And if I think about what we do, I mentioned to you a customer that I'm looking for something for right now, and I don't feel that any of the customers, no, I'm going to change that. Many of them would be willing. That's what I think. I do. I really think that, because they're good. They're good people. I'm just like, what's the resistance? What's the objection to bringing in something like that? Because, and then how is it risk free for them? Because I really look at it, and there's people I want to help, and I'm like, you should take a look at this, because I feel like we're doing some analysis or we're doing some CX work, and I'm like, it feels like it should be run through something like an Amplitude in my view. So what's the resistance, and what's the mindset for overcoming that?
I think it's a good question, because it's like, if you look at it at its base level, you go, why would I not do that? And I think it's just Amplitude and other platforms out there that do these various things. They've been around for a long time, but they've been around in a space in a specific team. It's a bit like that CFO question about Atlassian. Like, go ask the operations team and the engineering team and the kind of team that works on the technology side of the business. They'll know entirely how Atlassian works. They'll know exactly what the value is, but the team that's been remote from it doesn't know. These platforms and the ability to actually start driving, the infinity loop of like test, learn, build, test, learn, build, test, learn, build, has been sitting in a product team or sitting in a small development team or an engineering team or a data team, and the rest of the business doesn't know it exists. It's a lot like why in the MarTech space there's a lot of like shadow IT comes through marketing, because the marketing team need these type of platforms to understand customer data and customers' attributions and predictive analysis and behavioral, and therefore it looks like shadow IT because effectively like no one else in the business knows they need those things every day all day. That's why the example from the Japanese business is interesting, because everyone in the business has bought into actually we're going to be a data-driven culture. And I think that's one of the key driving forces. That's the unlock, is you start getting to a point where businesses, it's not just about adopting new tools, it's about embedding a data-driven digital mindset across your organization. And that's scary for a lot of people. It looks really, really hard. Yet, if you are able to start in some areas where in one team or one area or one product or one experience, you start kind of instilling that mindset, and then it starts leaking into other areas of the business, then you start driving change. It's just no knowns, unknown unknowns.
It seems like outside the podcast studio, someone doesn't realise the on-air means don't have a party.
100% right. Yeah. So I think it's not just about, it's direct line of sight to growth, direct line of sight to all the KPIs and the strategic outcomes a business has. But people can't connect that. So I think part of the challenge is connecting that. So direct line of sight to your kind of customer lifetime value or your kind of ARPU or your revenue of a business is, down the track goes, okay, how can I understand where users are getting stuck or customers are getting stuck? And if I unstick them and I simplify it, then I'm able to basically they have a much more satisfactory experience with us. They're less likely to churn. They're more likely to basically consume more of my products. They're more likely to respond to my marketing channels. I just think it comes down to a knowledge. Like most people don't know Amplitude is sitting behind the experiences most people probably on this podcast use every day. We sit behind Atlassian, we sit behind Canva, we sit behind Zip, we sit behind Safety Culture here in Australia, we sit behind the NBA, we sit behind other organisations, the ITV in the UK, we sit behind all of those to provide that business with signals of what matters to their customers and a treasure map to kind of understand where they should be putting their efforts, putting their attention, and putting their investments. And again, to your point on bloat, why would you do? The numbers don't say you should do this type of thing. You should optimize your use of capture or your cart. We have one customer where they've named add to cart, add to basket, add to bag. And effectively it's confusing customers because when they go across the experience, they see 3 different things with 3 different namings. Now, you wouldn't know that because the 3 different teams, the 3 different product teams, and the 3 design teams thought that's 100% right. When they tested it, it looked right in each individual product experience. But actually, when you combine it and the customer then goes across it and goes to buy something across 2 of your products from this group, it gets confusing because all of a sudden, is it a cart, is it a bag, or is it a basket? Where's my wish list gone? Because some businesses like Instacart and various others and lots of e-commerce businesses have now removed the wish list and you add it to basket. How many times has everyone been on Temu and basically added things to basket and all of a sudden you end up buying this stuff you don't really know because you're actually just using the basket as your wish list. But it's depreciated the wish list, which is less friction points. But again, it's those type of experiences that you can start optimizing every day, all day, and make it simple for your customers. I just don't think people know these platforms exist in the right. It's about knowledge, sharing knowledge.
I really love it. You've actually just given me a really brilliant idea, which I'll share with you offline.
There's always a business that spins off these conversations.
Yeah, there is, and
Ideas are the easy bit. The hard bit's actually getting that into execution.
you wouldn't believe how many behind-the-scenes plates I'm spinning on this stuff because it's all part of that digital
totally.
journey. I tell you my own experience with your product. I want it. I was like, why wouldn't I want it?
Well, that's good.
Yeah, right.
I like to hear that.
Yeah.
I'll put you in charge with the Viv from our country manager Australia.
Yeah, I spoke to marketing about it, and after seeing the demo, and I wonder if it's atypical. I was like, look, I want you. I said, and it's my company.
Yep.
I want you to pick. I want you to choose that because I want to know more about what's getting resonance on our website,
Totally.
what's working. Marketing look at it. We use Google Analytics.
Yep.
We use HubSpot.
Yep.
We don't need that. And I'm like, well, I want that.
Oh, well, HubSpot's a good one you use because we just integrated natively into HubSpot. So if you're a HubSpot customer out there, you can basically like turn on Amplitude tomorrow and get all your customer behavioral data in your HubSpot, which allows you to enrich all your HubSpot data. But keep going, sorry.
Yeah, no.
That's me doing a plug. I don't do sales, but that's
all
really
right.
exciting.
Marketing will be editing this, so I want them to hear it.
There you go. Good.
It's the resistance at that moment where I'm like, look, ultimately you've got to choose. But what I want to know is where my customers are dwelling. I want to know what I should be selling more of. What don't they like about my messaging? What do they like? Because, whilst they put it up and they help me with the content, the strategy of it is ultimately from the leadership team, which is them plus the others.
Totally.
And it got to the point of resistance where I'm like, look, I actually don't have time for the conversation anymore. I want it.
Yeah, I want something like that, whether it's ours or other platforms. But that's the need you have is you need to understand at a greater level what's going on within your product and your marketing channels, and you need to then be able to make smarter decisions on what you do as your business. Makes perfect sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Why would you not do that? Yeah.
Absolutely.
It's interesting.
Yeah,
Anyway.
it really is.
We've gone off topic.
No, not at all. I think this is the topic. I'm interested in MarTech. I'm interested in product. I'm interested in digital. I think this is the topic.
Well, because it's interesting because there's this overarching thing. You said in the beginning, like you were going to start on like what's on my mind right now. So two things are on my mind right now. One is effectively every business is now a digital business. I don't think lots of organizations operate, think, strategize, whatever is that, if that's a word, with that in mind. So, like, every business effectively is a digital business. Now, what do we mean by digital? Well, digital isn't a thing. It's a way of being, way of operating mindset. But from your customers' expectations of your business, they expect you to turn up on their phone. They expect you to turn up on their computer. They expect you to turn up in their email. They expect you to turn up on their WhatsApp. They expect you to turn up on Instagram. They expect you to turn up on TikTok. They expect you to turn up on LinkedIn. They expect you to turn up on digital channels. Oh, and by the way, they also sometimes expect you to go to a shop, but they expect that shop experience to be connected to all the other pieces. So, like, there's a tipping point, which is hits any business where more than 50% of its business comes from its digital channels. But we can start adding into that, like the loyalty program. One Pass One Digital did something on the weekend, which customers in Australia or listeners in Australia will know, which was like an offer across the whole of Wesfarmers grouped around One Pass One Digital. And that effectively connected all of the businesses that look like traditional, like offline retailers into a digital experience for Wesfarmers. That's hugely smart because it's now changing the expectations of everyone that goes to those businesses, Bunnings and Priceline and Catch, and Catch is a digital business, but the other businesses, Kmart, etc., into a digital business. So that's one thing on my mind. It's literally like there's no way a board or a C-suite can be not thinking itself as a digital business. We had a round table in Melbourne last week where there's a neobank and there's a traditional bank. They effectively are doing the same thing for customers, though. And they're both a digital bank. One of them might not think they are, but they actually are. And the realization at the end of the round table was, actually, yeah, I am. I'm actually more than 50%, more than 60% of my transactions are now, applications are via a channel that is involving a mobile phone or WhatsApp or whatever. So therefore, why am I spending a lot of my effort on something that isn't digital? So that's one of the things that's on my mind is how do organizations realize that they need to be in that shape? That's who they are. That's their being now. They are that business. John Deere realized it. John Deere does tractors, but John Deere doesn't just do tractors. John Deere is a digital connected business. All their hardware is now connected to the internet. So the second thing is the inflection point. We talked about. I'll continue to go on about this reflection moment of being a bit old, but chapter 1 of my career, I started building database on 3.5-inch floppy disks for insurance. That's kind of my first job. No internet, no ability to put that in a browser. Couldn't happen. There was an inflection point, which was effectively you could now do anything and anything through a browser onto a mobile phone. That's another inflection point. AI is now another inflection point. Literally, like if you have a business that has information and data that you make decisions of to deliver things for customers or deliver things for B2B, B2C, whatever, it doesn't matter what customer profile you're in, the data and the information and decision piece all of a sudden becomes something that can be a lot smarter, a lot real time, a lot more predictive, a lot more kind of learning. And your people your employees need to be augmenting that and understanding that, because that's going to be your future state. Like businesses back in the day stopped people going on the internet in their office because they were scared of it. Businesses today stop people using AI in their office because they're scared of it. Now there's security and there's privacy and there's data share because we've evolved we've evolved in our understanding of technology in our lives and how we use data in our lives. But I think it's an inflection point, and I think you need to be ready for it. If you're not ready for it, then foundations need to be built today to embrace it when it scales in customers' minds and customers' experiences. Your iPhone 16, Apple Intelligence on every phone, like as AI built into Samsung devices. The next generation is app only, they're mobile only, they skipped entirely the computer-based internet. So how are you going to, as a business, embrace those customers? And if you're not looking at the current moment as an inflection point, then I think you're missing a point. That's just my view.
You actually answered another question I had. It's not the same, but it's. I said, if you said to me, name a tech company, I wouldn't pick AOL. And I'm sure they exist and they're out there and they're doing their thing, but I wouldn't pick them. So they get merged into someone else.
So I think they're a Verizon business. Yahoo's maybe I should go get a job at Verizon because Yahoo's there and AOL's there. There's a lot of great people still work at AOL and Yahoo, actually. And they are scale businesses. If you go to Japan, you go to Korea, Yahoo is a very large part of the player in the market. And AOL is still, I've still got an AOL address somewhere, CompuServe address somewhere. So yeah, there are businesses that still exist and people still use them every day all day. They're not dead. But from that nexus came a lot of the businesses that people use every day, people that look up to. Mark Drasutis worked at Netscape. Netscape was owned by AOL. AOL then spun out and basically built Loud Cloud. Loud Cloud became cloud computing, and all of a sudden we're now in a different world. That's from AOL. A lot of the Yahoo business, we built a lot of messenger stuff back in the day, and AKA looks the same as what you do on WhatsApp, what you do on TikTok, what you do on Snapchat. So a lot of the foundations were there because it was able to look to the future, build the foundations, and embrace it. And I think that's the thing that businesses need to think about for the AI is you need to build your foundations, embrace it. Doesn't mean you do it without risk applied and risk profile of businesses, and you need to apply that. But it's an inevitability, actually, not a, it might not happen.
As it relates to your new world, what's the most atomic version of starting on that journey to be recognizing your words, realize that everything is a digital business and that you need to really enable data for decisioning?
Yep.
As it relates to your world, what's the most atomized version of that, do you think, to get started?
I think the atomized version is, well, if your business doesn't have a digital experience layer, then you, well, every
What if it does?
What if it does? If it does, then your first step is to start lighting up that and driving some insights off it. So one thing we've just done, which is amazing, is rebuild. So at Amplitude, we rebuild the platform over time. So as it scales, so we were a mobile native. So when Spencer and the guys built the business back in the day, they needed it for their mobile application. They were building a Y Combinator. So it comes from a world of today's world, not the past web world. And we've just rebuilt a lot of the platform for Amplitude Made Easy. And Amplitude Made Easy comes in multiple places for multiple organizations. There's a type that works for enterprise, and there's a type that works for a startup or a small business. So if you've got a marketing channel, or you've got like a experience you've got today, one line of code. Now, every engineer on the call is going, oh, it's never just one line of code. But the one line of code unlocks the SDK. The SDK can be enabled into your business, into your digital channels. And then we will start collecting the events that we see as the ones that over the period of time of Amplitude being a business has been the most events that people have used to drive different outcomes. Then we have this amazing piece that's called the template gallery, that you can choose a template from businesses such as Dropbox and such as other organizations who are data driven in their culture. And you can then plug the events you get from the installation of Amplitude Made Easy. You can then use the templates that other people have used, and you can, off the shoulders of giants, start becoming a kind of, I've now lit up and understand a little bit more my experience layer. I understand what's going on. I understand the journeys. I understand the pathing. I can start making decisions based on like the journey map where people are getting stuck. I kind of like, I build a treasure map of my digital experience layer, basically. That's it. Just start there. Because then all of a sudden you'll start seeing some insights to drive actions. So it's kind of like makes it easy. It connects the experience for all your customers, and it allows you to make fast decision making. So it's kind of, we call them aha moments. But it's like we have teams that shout out, wow, we've found this. We now know why this conversion's working and wasn't working before. And it's like having a bunch of X-ray goggles that lets you kind of look at the experience layer in a different way. So if any business, then you can start making data-driven decisions, not just decisions, hippo decisions or gut decisions or, yeah, we think we're seeing this. And it kind of connects qualitative and quantitative. I think it's one for designers out there and design teams, because it's interesting that the biggest real like aha moments have been when creative teams and product teams work together using our insights, because actually then they can really, really drive real change to the organization. And again, offline, online. I've talked about retailers. It's just an event to us. We can connect it. So your point of sale system, you're in store. We have a large fast food company that, the screen you choose to choose your burger is connected to Amplitude, so we can see entirely those customers as they go through their transactions. So I think it's just, I'd start with there. Why not? To your point, why would you not want to see what's going on with your customer experience layer? Because it's the thing that's your business. Your business is that experience now. You are a digital business.
It just seems like a no-brainer to me. But when
it seems like a no-brainer, but it sometimes isn't a no-brainer, because there's a complication to it.
Uh-huh.
And I think that's one of the things I've learned over my career is simplification truly is an art. And like, it's hard. Making things simple is very hard. I'm sure you know, Chris, from your career and background of marketing and various things. Making things simple messaging, simple messages that resonate is hard. Simple experiences that are hard. How to combine art and science, though, is the trick. We used to call it art and science at Yahoo. And it still is a phrase that's used a lot. How do you balance the art and the science to therefore create simplified experiences? I think if you don't do that, the next generation will walk past you because, you know, the expectations that they have from their experiences today will stick with them for life.
You just inspired that.
I've inspired another picture. How amazing. There you go.
Simplification.
Simplification is on the amazing. There you go.
It's like, I never run out of content. People ask me all the time, how do you come up with it? And it's like, oh yeah, talk to Mark, talk to someone.
Talk to someone.
And then
Listen.
Learn to sketch and then stuff will happen. I think I really like that. I really also like that expression, standing on the shoulders of giants, because, you know, we all stand on the shoulders of whoever went before, and it's easy to forget that, right?
Totally.
Giants or otherwise.
Giants or otherwise. Like someone as somewhere in the world, for any business, any person listening, product manager, engineering manager, designer, and I'm a sage old bloke, so I can probably say this. Somewhere in the world, someone has probably had the same question you're asking right now, or the problem you're trying to solve somewhere, and has solved it, or at least come 80% to the way to solving it. So don't try to reinvent it. There's very few net new things in the world. Just involves a bunch of research and a bunch of understanding the data and the right platforms to get on. You know, AWS does this very well, GCP does this very well, Azure does this very well, those hyperscalers do it very well. Like, if someone's built a model that does a certain thing for a certain outcome, for a certain type of business in a certain sector, you'll probably find it lurking somewhere in the back end of AWS, in services, in SageMaker somewhere or whatever. Because effectively, someone's already solved it. It's a bit like our template gallery. So someone's already built out multitudes of dashboards that allows you to understand funnel analysis, understand like your customer journey, understand your churn report, understand what repeat customers and how to retain those customers. Someone's built the report already, so that we just allow you now to use it in one click. Easy.
I think there's something about being able to find the thing that's been done, and then analyze it and then implement it in a way that's right for your business.
Totally.
And then not letting anything get in the way along the way of that.
Yeah, no,
journey,
100%. And kudos to one of the sorry, I talked about a round table in Melbourne last week. We had one of the big four banks at the table. And kudos to that bank, because they had on their list of customers or businesses to watch the neobank. Of course they did, because it's taking a bunch of their customers, but also they're learning from that experience of what they're trying to do and then making it work for their brand proposition. So, you know, everyone has a value proposition, customer value proposition, brand proposition. So you can't just copy the same. Like, it's the same with operating models. Like, you can't just take the same operating model someone else has and plug it into your business. It's not how it works. You have a series of values, culture, etc., that basically drives a different outcome for your business. But you can look at it and understand it and then make it work for you in your context, which is entirely what they're doing. So kudos to them. But yeah, I think it's an interesting one.
Yeah, I love it. It's just making me think about all the things that I'm borrowing from many sources.
Totally.
And then the tension between expressing different and better, because some people find different on the nose and some people find better on the nose. And so it's riding that fine line of different and better, but without saying so. When I think about, you know, augmenting other models or methods that people have, you know, and as you know, I play around very much with red ocean and blue ocean.
You do,
and
yeah.
my concept of purple ocean, slightly different, slightly better, as opposed to trying to claim it, different planet, better.
Yeah, no, it doesn't work.
Yeah, it's a real conundrum when building a business.
And then to your shoulders of giants piece, like the team at Yahoo did a lot of work on atoms, molecules for design systems and design patterns. And there's patterns to everything. And even back in the day, Dave Vertime and the team at Economist were doing a lot of work with Jakob Nielsen and those guys about usability and accessibility. And someone's already worked it out for you. You just need to basically borrow it, but make it work in your context. Like, don't try and reinvent. No one reinvents the navigation or the swipe mode, the swipe behavior on a mobile phone. Swipe left, swipe right was not an invention by a certain business. It was actually like something that people already did on a mobile because it was a behavior that was available on the mobile phone. Just borrowed it, made it work in their context. So I think we just got to think about that.
There's so much information to take on, synthesize. I just even prepping for today and thinking about it, getting my head in the right space.
Yep.
I know I'm stating what's obvious.
It all seems obvious when you say it. Doing it's hard.
In the context of what we're talking about here, ChatGPT and AI, Gen AI is blowing. I don't mean like, oh yeah, that's everyone. I mean, it's blowing my mind how fast I can switch context. Because I'm in strategy, finance, legal, sales, podcasting, content marketing. And for someone like me in my role, the ability to go tell me what I should really know about Amplitude as it applies to the context of my business, Thunder Labs. I couldn't make the time to research that. And I find faults with it, but turn me off. And some of that's about my authentication login experiences. Like, I'm not enjoying that at the moment. Ironically, I use the same.
There's friction there.
Yeah, right.
I know someone at the back end of OpenAI will be looking at the friction points of the OpenAI experience and optimizing it. You see when you get two different versions in ChatGPT where you get the 3 and the 4 alongside each other and you've got the ability to optimize it. That's basically a live experiment. That's actually a truly data-driven business that basically allows you to optimize it full time.
Well, if anyone from there has made it so far in here, I want support to tell me why I can't log into my paid account because my authentication entry is different despite me trying every method I have to get to the damn paid application.
There's two pieces that haven't really... There's simplification in this piece. I've worked in multiple subscription-based businesses, moving from free to trial or free to registered to trial to subscribed. And that's always been a challenge of moving people through that funnel. It's mutability, basically. And how do you basically understand a customer when they move various states? Not been a good thing that people have been able to work out. And it's been hard. So from a product perspective and a technology perspective, it's always been hard to do that. So, and security is the other. Like, I have to log in, I have to triple authenticate, which is necessary in today's world and 100% the right thing to do. Yet, how do you do that in a frictionless, simplified way? Again, there's probably some context somewhere that needs to be applied to it from some other context that's applied to security that maybe will answer that problem. It's not a simple one to ask.
No, it isn't, and it's definitely one of the superpowers that the engineers hold in my business, and I think we're exploring that quite deeply. Yeah, I still can't solve the damn problem.
No, exactly.
I can't get a damn answer on why I can't get my premium experience that I'm paying for every month. But anyway, don't get me on that.
No, we won't go there on that.
I really like decisions on signal, not gut.
Yeah.
I really
Tummy
like...
Compass, it was called in one company I work for.
It was what called?
Tummy Compass.
A tummy compass.
Yeah. I've got a tummy compass. I've got like this view. I know why that happens because I know a certain context. It's interesting. Decision by gut. So many decisions in businesses and organizations and teams get done with I kind of know. Yeah.
But should that really be... we're talking about there. This is a theme that's come up for me recently about I kind of know.
Yep.
And, I'm going to say this really badly, but the human brain plus the stomach is a pattern recognition machine.
Totally.
And, if we're seeing something before, maybe it's innate and in our DNA, or maybe it's something that we've experienced along the way.
Yep.
The challenge, of course, is not to become a victim to your instincts or your experiences, but to challenge them because they are the loudest voice. But I feel that there's a great deal of pressure at the moment to revert to, let's say, data or tools or systems or something, and we make decisions by all of those.
Yep.
But sometimes I think that there is a place for the tummy compass.
Totally.
Which he's just inspired that.
So you got the tummy compass.
Yeah, he's just drawn.
Totally there is, and I think that's the balancing act. That's the balance of like, how do you get, like, human beings are, as you say, intrinsically they like patterns, they like familiarity. That's why we like tribes. Humans through the whole generations like tribes, and all digital businesses and digital experiences have moved that direction. I've worked in a number of them that have done analysis on, like, we had AOL message boards, and then we had Yahoo groups, and it looks very familiar because it looks a lot like Facebook, it looks a lot like Instagram, it looks a lot like WhatsApp, it looks like the challenges with Telegram, etc. And people like patterns, they like familiarity, but I think there's a balancing act now between, like, I can get the insight. Data is great, but insight's better, and signal is even better. So signposting, here's some decisions you might want to make. But those decisions you make don't need to be driven by, that's why it's called data-driven, not data-done decision-making. You know what I mean? Because it's data-driven, and it's like, actually then apply that to the context of qualitative and quantitative. So the qualitative has a place. Now, most companies that we work with globally at scale use user testing to validate and talk to customers, maybe a small number of customers, but they talk to customers. And if you're not talking to your customers or listening to your customers, you're only using the insight, then you're going down the wrong path, because you need to be balancing that out. It's just a balance that you make. People, we did I've said this to multiple people over time, we did a global survey at Yahoo back in the day. It must have been, 2008, maybe 2009. On targeted advertising, behavioral, like, targeted advertising and predictive advertising across the Yahoo network. And, like, asked one question: do customers want targeted advertising? No. Like 80%, more than 80%, 90% said no. And then further in the survey was a question around: do you want advertising relevant to you? Yes, by 60, 70%. You go, hang on. So the data will tell you that, but the qualitative needs to be added to it. So I think you're right. There's a balancing act between it. You can't just go all data driven, but you need to have. That's where humans apply. So humans will always be enhanced by the tools. The plow. Let's take that as an example. Humans used to do it. The plow optimized it. Then all of a sudden, the farmer was able to do more things because they could plow the field instead of having to dig it all the time, so they could do things quicker. And therefore, the tool was just augmenting the human, and the human brain and the human creativity and the human curiosity and the kind of pattern matching that they do is hugely smarter than any other model will ever be. It's the augmentation. But I think you can't go all in one, because that's bad. You go down there.
It's funny you say that. As you were saying it before, I wrote data augmented decisions as opposed to data driven decisions. I do like that distinction.
Totally right.
I think I'll make sure I imbue that in my pattern recognition.
Exactly right. But I think it's 100% right, because, like, if you just make this, like the board director you were talking about, like, I just want to know. I don't know, so tell me. But the person who's talking to them needs the experience, and the kind of, like, I always kind of hire for context and experience, because you can learn something from a book, but unless you've actually done it, it's probably strategy. Strategy is great in a PowerPoint, but it's better in execution in your team. It's much more powerful. How to get that into execution is the trick. If you know how to do that, then those are the people you should hire, not the person who knows how to do a strategy. Because, great. So I think that's 100% agree with you. Like, it's data augmented. It's like they play together. Amplitude sees that a lot. Like, we take AI to a level in our product today, but it will provide you with a decision point not the decision. On some things you can make a decision, like based on like creative, this one. Okay, this one works better. You do that. That's fine. It's small elements, but big product elements or big decisions for your product, you need a human to have a conversation, a team to have a discussion, because it impacts multiple areas.
Yeah, there's really something that I want to play around with more there, Mark. It's a good one.
It's a good one.
We've covered a lot. I need to buy a new notebook because you've taken up like 10, 20 pages or something.
I've got one in my bag. You can get one.
That's right. Dude, I feel like I was about to go through the summary of these things: decisions on signal, not on gut, data augmenting decision. This amazing business idea that I'll talk to you about offline. You've given me.
Yeah. Okay.
Like simplifications are. I like that we all stand on the shoulders of giants, but also everybody else that's been before us.
Yeah.
I like this thing around, on your mind, and it must be. It should be. If it's not for everybody, I'm going to get the words right. Just let me find it on my page. How do organizations realize that everything is a digital business? And data, number one, and number two, data and decisions should be connected. And we are at this inflection point of data and AI.
Totally.
And people are scared of it like they were about the internet. I think I remember it being banned in my office, by the way, the internet.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, exactly right. Yeah.
So that really resonates.
No IE4 in this place. No.
But I also really like the concept, maybe because it falls to my line of thinking, which is, choose atomized versions of the things that you want to do, and then do them at the lowest cost, lowest risk way. But if we're not experimenting around the fringes of what we accept as the business, then there's a danger that we do just become a training ground for great people that go on to other things, like we talked about organizations before, rather than retaining that spot of preeminence and recognize as still the training ground for great people.
Yep.
And I think that I don't mean to think of AOL in that respect, by the way, because obviously it's great people there, and it's like you say, but it's like on my mind is how do organizations gain preeminence and stay there for as long as an epoch as possible.
Yeah. I think it's keeping. I try to operate by a bunch of principles for my career. I always have in all those chapters. So I've got a blog. Most people don't know I've got a blog, but I haven't updated it for years. Can Do Matter, which is what I read. It was a Wired article. I nicked the title off and borrowed. And one of the principles is everything's a work in progress. And I think that's entirely the mindset to keep going on, to your point. Like, you actually are a training ground for the next generation, the next thing. Then everyone is... Think about it that way, that there is no finish line. It's a training process. Like, back to Liverpool Football Club. They turn up on the pitch and they basically take things from training onto the pitch. But I bet the team kind of thinks about it like they've done it so many times that they've trained that they know how to do it. They just move. Their muscle memory is so good. So I think there's a principle there that's basically like everything's a work in progress, and you're a training ground, continually a training ground. There's no right answer. There's just an answer. Yeah.
Terrifying thoughts. I think it's never done, and it's always a work in progress.
Well, if it was done, we'd all sit there and put our feet up and go, you know what, I've got it now. It's all good. Like, no, don't. Any of those businesses that people aspire to be, like, or teams that people aspire to be, or people they aspire to be, they're always work in progresses. No one stops. And Facebook Meta doesn't stop, Alphabet doesn't stop, Amazon doesn't stop, Canva doesn't stop, Atlassian doesn't stop. Like, these businesses don't stop. They are always evolving, they're always learning, they're always changing, because they've kind of worked out that, well, they know that it's always a work in progress. There's another thing, another thing, another thing, another thing.
I'll steel myself for the work in progress that's to be done today.
Well, it's a bit like your exhaustion of, like, actually the tipping point of, like, how do you become continually on that edge of, it's always a work in progress. But I think it's, if you have that mindset, like, the biggest gift is learning, basically. If I can give my teams and people who work for me, listening to podcasts, listening to this, I used to have a bunch of books by my desk. I used to have the worst desk in the team. Just it was a bit of a joke, but I used to have the worst desk in the whole of the News Corp building, floor 3, and everyone walked past it. But I used to have a bunch of books there. I used to buy people books at ASX. I used to buy people books at IG. I'd always do an end of a week email of like things you might want to talk about, weekend reads and various things like that. Because actually the biggest gift you can give to an organization in your team is continuous learning. Because everything's a work in progress. If you can make better people from the people you've got, then it's a good outcome. I'm quite proud of the teams I've built and people who've gone on to do amazing things. And they have done. So it's good.
Yeah. It's an interesting steel thread that runs through a lot of your stories, naming people by name for the past, let's go 30 years.
Let's go 30 years.
You
talk about Shane.
Yeah. I do.
Alistair at The Economist, he's a great engineer, but back in the day.
But it's just an interesting observation, that's all. Okay, it's actually something I wrote down earlier, because we talked about steel threads and you talked about the experiences, and I noticed the naming of names throughout those experiences.
Yeah.
And not that you said that, but it feels like an enrichment that
totally.
Is
it is.
Yeah.
It is, because you kind of like the biggest legacy you can give as a leader, you can leave as a leader, is that there's people that are smarter than you now behind you that basically know more and that you've helped to get to where they kind of thought they couldn't get to. It's called the art of the possible. Like, let's just understand that everything's possible if you kind of can, take the lessons from what you do. There's no such thing as learnings. There's lessons. And so lessons from what you've done, what you've not done well, and the world around you, and then take that forward, and then grow those people. Half the team at Yahoo is now doing C-suite jobs across Europe and doing great things at great organizations, or built their own businesses, or built new technologies, or challenging a bunch of different ways of doing things. That's great. If I could be part of that, winner.
I like continuous lessons versus continuous learning.
Learn. Everyone, some people who know me very well know I have to learnings, because there's to learn or lessons.
Yeah.
To learn, it's a doing word. So learning is not a doing word. Anyway, that's just one of my little odd things. I get stuck on things sometimes. I've got these things.
I'll help you draw the distinction again through some pretty drawings that I'll make. I do think
I'm sure someone will come on the comments and basically go, no, learnings is a thing, and that's okay. That's okay.
I look forward
I
to
will have learned something if that's the case. That's good.
Or you've had your lesson.
I'll have had my lesson.
I do like the idea of continuous lessons.
Yes,
but I also like
continuous learning. There's a thing, because learning is a thing.
Okay,
yeah.
Right. I'll scrub out my diagram. But
That's
it's then the freedom to implement those learnings and lessons, because otherwise you get a captain frustrated workforce where they don't get the freedom to, and really good people, I think, have ideas and they want to practice those ideas. I mean, there's nothing worse than, there's many things worse, so I'd rephrase that. It can be a frustration to be capable and to be put in a box, I think.
Yeah, 100% right. And if you haven't built an operating model that allows you to take like continuous improvement of your team, like continuous improvement is one of those, like a Kaizen practitioner, continuous improvement is the thing. So you basically like continuously improve your team, and then you don't give them the opportunity to actually bring that to life. The front end development team, and Leon and the guys at News Corp, they were continually trying to find new front end frameworks. You look at Go, you look at React, you look at React Native, look at Fabulous, I think was one we looked at for a while. And it was like, but they were learning new ways of doing things and new ways of delivering experiences to customers. But they had the freedom within their kind of team to do that. Now, they had to get through, like Adam from architecture, and they had to get through the architecture team, and everyone else had to validate it and make sure it fitted, and it had to be secure, and it had to be scalable, and therefore some of these things dropped by the wayside. But it's okay, because they were able to learn new ways of doing things, and they've taken that mindset, but the operating model allowed them to do that. The team construct allowed them to do that. If you don't maintain that team construct, though, and you kind of like then say, don't do that, then your point is right. You then end up frustration, and you end up alienating people because they're like, well, why am I here? I'm not just here to do a job. I'm here to basically grow my career. I'm also here to learn new things. I'm also here to, So I think I agree with you 100%.
A nice bookend towards the end of this to for the power of an ecosystem and the constituent parts of that ecosystem. I love it.
It's 100% the right way. And then the guys at Boundaryless do an amazing piece on this. So the platform ecosystem work that they do, so people should go have a look at it. Simone and the guys do an amazing job of like, your business is an ecosystem. Everyone in it is part of that ecosystem. It's a bit like the design patterns back in the day: atoms, molecules, organisms. That's how you think about each individual element on your page and on your experience for your customers is an atom within a molecule, and they all interrelate. Everything's a system, and if you can't, like, you look at the world economy right now, it's kind of on pause, waiting for an election to happen a little bit, and there's tensions all over the world, but it's all a system. The things you buy every day and the things you consume have a direct correlation to that. And COVID was one of the biggest things that basically said, it's a shock to the system, and the whole system stopped. Everything's a system. So I agree with you 100%. Like, you've got to think about an ecosystem.
Right.
Yeah.
Just if anyone's not got anything to do, just start thinking about complex ecosystems and moving through them no matter what.
Yeah, complex patterns and ecosystems.
Yeah. I like that. I need to play around with that thought as well. Atoms and molecules and the component parts that build up into organisms.
You can find that one. I can't remember his name now, but it was from Yahoo. One of the design leads came up with this model in relation to atoms, molecules. Way back in the day, design patterns.
It's just cutting through to something that came up recently when we were talking about atomized versions of products to build. So I really like it. And just on Boundaryless as well. I don't know them, but I have started following the work since you recommended it. So I appreciate the heads up on that.
Super good.
All right, Mark. Well, if there's nothing we haven't covered, which that is definitely the case, if there's nothing more we should cover right now, then thank you for your time. I appreciate everything, man. There's a lot in this.
Well, there's a lot in it. And as I said, I try to circle in, like, my role is exciting now at Amplitude because, like, I can help businesses be better businesses than they think they can be through the platform and through just thinking and asking the right way and asking the right questions and ask better questions. And it's about asking better questions. So all we do is provide the insights and analytics for your product. Marketing analytics moves a little bit to kind of like performance and brand, but your product that you put to market via offline or digital is your experience to your customers. That is your business. And understanding what's going on that every day, all day, is actually like the unlock. I like the word unlock. So it unlocks a lot of value, it unlocks a lot of team performance, it unlocks a lot of growth, it unlocks a lot of like unexpected moments that you couldn't even think were there. So if you go to amplitude.com and have a look, there's a section around aha moments. Go have a look. Like Zip's the latest one, safety culture's on there. We've got NTT Docomo out of Japan on there, and Fender and other organizations who have actually had a moment of clarity, which the data, the signal, the action, and the substantive change that they've been able to make has been quite profound. Yeah, and I like helping other people.
It really resonates, and I know that because this is your second go at recording this.
It's my second go recording
and
it.
aside from all the side conversations we've had to get to this point. So, dude, again,
it's great to chat about it.
I love the time.
It's good.
Thank you for making the effort to talk me all through all this. And,
no, it's good. I love the conversation, Chris, and I love what you're trying to do with the other labs. And there's like it's a work in progress and it's an iteration. But like, I think what you're trying to do in the space to change people's mindsets, to change people's approaches, and to not be kind of siloed of this is a technology team, this is a product, this is a technology consultancy, this is a data consultancy, this is a product consultancy, this is a marketing piece. It's all as one.
It is.
Because it is. Because fundamentally it is. And if you don't think about it that way, then you're kind of basically like put yourself into a corner. Yeah.
Right, that sounds like the topic for the next podcast. I'm
Cheers.
going to end here. Thank you so
Okay.
much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you, everyone, for your ears, and hopefully it's been useful.
See you the next time, mate.
See you next time. Thanks.